how bad is the problem of evil? Well, it might be useful to think of the following version of the problem of evil. If there is a necessarily perfect God, then if he's going to create a world, necessarily he will create the best possible world. This isn't the best possible world. We can easily imagine a better one, so there's no perfect God. Now, there's a quite traditional response to this argument. You can find it in Aquinas, which holds that God is infinite, created things are finite. For any finite thing, there's always a better finite thing that you can conceive. So there is no such thing as the best possible world, and hence God can't create such a thing. The best he could do is to create an existence-worthy world of some kind or other, and assuming that this world is such a world, this is a world that God could have chosen to create. Now, I think there's a serious objection to this line of argument, which goes along the lines of suggesting that, in fact, one of the premises of the objection is false. It is false that there is no best possible world. The thought is this, that there is no reason why God could not create an infinitely good creature, what I would call a perfect creature. Now, a perfect creature is just like God, except for one difference, and the one difference is simply this: God is uncreated. This creature is, by definition, created. This is a being which shares absolutely all of God's properties, except that it's not an uncreated being. I want to just briefly consider two objections to the view, and then very briefly try to defang those objections. One objection is this, that this would involve a situation in which the world contained two omnipotent beings. And you couldn't have two omnipotent beings because one of these obviously would have the possibility of limiting the power of the other. Answer, not to worry. These beings, both God and the perfect creature, are beings that are perfectly good and omniscient. They know everything, and they have these features necessarily. So necessarily, they will always agree on what's the best thing to do. And necessarily, they will understand that it would be a disaster if there were disharmony. And so necessarily, they will always agree. And a fortiori, they won't, their wills won't come apart, and there's no real sense in which the power of one would limit the power of the other. The second objection that I think is worth taking seriously is what you might call the plenitude objection. It runs roughly like this. It's a very good thing for God to have created a perfect creature. Presumably he did do that. But it would be even better if he also introduced some variety into the world by creating some things that are not perfect. This is a good thing to have, variety. This objection has, I think, some force, but it seems to me in the end that it fails as well. You could think of it this way. Let's say God has created a perfect creature, and now he thinks to himself, is there anything else that I should create? After all, this creation that I have has infinite value. It's infinitely good. I can't add, in any real way, more value to my creation, but maybe nevertheless, there's some kind of value to variety. So consider the following options. Maybe I can either leave things as they are, or I can add an imperfect creature thereby doing something that adds some value, right? Or perhaps I could create another perfect creature. What would be the best thing to do? Well, I can't, in fact, substantively raise the amount of goodness of my creation. And if I create an imperfect creature, I have created something that is, in fact, infinitely less valuable, even though it introduces variety into the universe, than my original perfect creature, infinitely less value than any other perfect creature that I could create. So it's hard for me to see why God would be motivated to do that, and therefore it seems to me that the problem is rather a serious one, since clearly this world that we live in is not a perfect creature.